Hey everybody, I'm Mike Jones. I'm a retired Texas police officer.
G'day everybody, I'm Pete Gillette and I'm a retired New South Wales policeman. Well, good morning everybody. Great to see you all, and we have a guest with us this morning. Mike's recovering from his shoulder surgery, and have you got your arm in a sling, mate?
Uh,
No.
no, sitting in this chair. I
Okay.
took it
We
off a
won't
while
we
ago.
won't tell anybody.
Yeah, don't tell nobody.
All right. So our guest this morning is Paul Jones, another Jones, being swamped.
Yeah.
Paul is a mate of mine, and we work together in Dubbo. We're just going to give Paul can give a brief rundown of his career in a moment, but I think I've known Paul for about 20 years, I would say. No, 26. I think we met around 2000 anyway. And we worked together doing general duties policing in Dubbo, which is a regional city in New South Wales. So you want to just give a brief rundown, Paul, of your career?
Yeah, I started with the Cobbers in 1988. Went to a little place called Narromine, just out of Dubbo. I was out there for 18 months or so, and I got a transfer into criminal investigation in Dubbo, which is it's a pretty hotly contested spot. How that happened was little places like Narromine, it's only about 3,000 people. And no crime ever went unsolved. A break and enter was a break and enter, and you might be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months later, you'd still be making inquiries in there anyway. So I applied for a search warrant on this particular house, and as a result of that search warrant, I got the CI blokes out to give me a hand. But as a result of that, we solved about 35 break and enters that had happened over the last 12 months. So the fellows in CI come out the next day with an application form for me to apply for plain clothes. So that's what I did. We moved to Dubbo. We were there for a while, and I got confirmed as a designated detective, and then I moved to a place called Narrabri, which is up towards Moree, up north, further north, and I was there for 4 years in plain clothes, doing CI work. I didn't particularly like Narrabri as a town, but as a police officer, it was a great learning experience. So I come back to they come back to Dubbo because they started up a target action group, and I'd had enough of doing general CI work for a while, so I come back to that, and it was just a lot lighter. Anyway, so I was only in there for about 6 or 8 weeks, and people from Sydney rang me and wanted me to go and do child protection. So I went down there to child protection unit in Dubbo, and that looked after all the areas from Dubbo to Burke, Wilcannia, all the way up to the border, down to Parks, across to Mudgee. It was a fairly big area. And then they had another office in Bathurst, which was a lot more local. But the only problem was I was the only officer there for both offices, so I was covering well over half the state, doing child protection stuff, and it was really interesting because you learnt how to deal with other government departments and particularly our what they call DOCS, Department of Community Services. So you build a lot of relationships, which helped you later on. So I ended up winning a sergeant's job at Dubbo, and that's Pete wasn't on my team originally, but he came onto my team shortly after. And the only good thing my team was good at when I took over it was getting complaints. They come last in every measurable area, but within about 6 months, we started coming first in some, and then about 8 or 9 months into the job, we topped the lot. and never lost it the whole time we were there, which I thought was quite good. So, but GDs was very interesting. It was very, very confronting, particularly in Dubbo. Dubbo's an extremely violent place. Like they'd call police over into a cul-de-sac and try and set a trap for us. So we had to be very, very careful about how we policed in certain parts of the thing. And we only had, in Australia, you have your primary response and your secondary response vehicle, and they have two officers. When we were working, most times there was only 6 of us on. And that's for a population of about 40,000 people. So you really worked hard, and like you just had to put the nose to the grindstone and keep going. So then I see a number of people getting inspectors' jobs, and I'm going, I know I can do a better job than that. So I applied for one, and I became a detective inspector at Walgett, and then I later transferred to Orange, and then I transferred to Parks. But all of that time I lived in Dubbo. I just travelled backwards and forwards to work. But we've done numerous criminal investigations, murders, a lot of sexual assaults, a lot of child sexual assaults, and drug stuff. Like, there wouldn't be a town in New South Wales that doesn't have a drug problem, and there was always at Narrabri we were finding drug labs every 12 months. It is a real big problem in country New South Wales. But yeah, that's about it.
Well, thanks very much, Paul.
Yeah.
It was certainly a fantastic experience, and Paul and I have maintained a fantastic friendship since we both retired, and visited each other in our places where we live, and it's just wonderful. So one of the first video we're going to look at now is something that I've got zero experience in, and that's spike strip. So we'll run that now. And then we'll give our various comments on it.
It's not every day that an officer has to use spike strips to stop a police chase. But when they do finally get to use them, they know that if they miss, someone will definitely film it and post the footage online for the whole world to see.
So I'm guessing, Mike, you might have more experience of this than any of us. Do you have any experience of it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, funny that the spike strips that we just saw in that video are different than the ones that I grew up on. The ones I grew up on were kind of accordion. You kind of slid them out and they just unfolded like an accordion. It and it has a rope that's connected to it. So after the bad guy goes by, you're supposed to pull that rope in. You're not supposed to hold on to it because some of them been hurt, where those get caught up in a car and it jerks somebody's arm out of socket. But apparently what they've got now is all encased in some kind of foam. You saw what he threw out there in that road. The biggest issue with spike strips is inevitably you're going to get a police car. You're going to spike a police car, and you're going to be known for that for a long time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, you do it. Sometimes you'll throw it out there. The guy who's chasing them will tell you he's in the left-hand lane, and he'll be coming smoking through there, and you throw it out there, and they can see it. 9 times out of 10, they can see it and they'll just dodge out of it and you miss it. And then you're trying to get it out of the road because you got police going everywhere, So yeah, you get police cars often. So
what about you, Paul? Have you ever had any experience with them?
Yeah, I've deployed them a couple of times. They're not the be all and end all, because it's very, very hard. Like, yeah, the ones that we use are the three triangles that are linked together. It's very, very hard to get them deployed in a straight line across the road, number one. And they're not long enough to cover the whole road. So 9 times out of 10, the crooks swerve to avoid them. And a couple of times out of 10, when they swerve to avoid them, they have a catastrophic accident and kill someone. And I've been to a few as an inspector, because we got to review, like when they get a serious injury or something, we got what they call a critical incident. I honestly think that the people who are using them need a lot more training in them than what they actually get. But it's typical of with the coppers, everything comes down to thing.
Was it only the Highway Patrol that used them?
What's that?
Was it only the Highway Patrol that got that training and used them?
No. We all got trained.
No, I never had it. No.
Yeah, but I think it should be left up to the Highway Patrol. Although, like there was one bloke that was killed down near Goulburn. He was a Highway Patrol.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened was the crook saw the deployment and swerved, lost control, and cleaned old mate up.
Yeah. One of the issues that probably most people don't realise is that in this country, or especially in New South Wales, there's a thing called death in custody. I think it's Section 13 of the Coroners Act. And if we use those, Mike, and the person driving the car, so the crook driving the car dies, that person will be considered to be in our custody. It's just crazy. I think it's crazy. So when people hear about the figures or about death in custody, people generally think, oh, it's the coppers get someone in a cell and bash them to death or something like that. It can be something like that. So the next one we're going to look at is we accept that it's not actually real footage of a police officer. That it's but nonetheless it tells a story about using excuses to get out of a speeding fine. So we'll just roll the tape and then we'll come back to it.
This police officer stopped this woman for speeding, and when he asked for the reason why she was speeding, her answer left him completely speechless.
Where do you think you're going?
To the donut shop.
At 80 miles an hour?
I had to make sure I got there before you and make sure there was donuts left.
I think going back to the question, if you ever what excuse have you ever given to get out of a speeding ticket? Well, I don't have any, because I never actually issued a speeding ticket. Not being Highway Patrol, our evidence was considered was pretty hard to give good evidence about speed without radar or whatever they call it. So I've acted. So I've had people give excuses, of course, but in general I just take it on merit and see if they generally, for me, if they accepted whatever I pulled them over for, if they accepted what I said was true, then they just got a warning and that was the end of it. What about you, Mike? Have you ever had some interesting excuses? I think you've told us about one before.
Yeah. I mean, 9 times out of 10, everybody's got an excuse why they're speeding out there,
Yeah.
But that's part of our training is, to go up to the window, introduce yourself, who you are, and the reasons why you pulled them over. We wear body cams so that we're establishing probable cause on video. And then we'll ask them, is there emergency? For instance, the radar has you at 65 and a 40. Let's just example. Is there a reason why you're? And we offer them to give us a reason. Like maybe they just got a call that their children was injured at school or some kind of existing exigent circumstances that might sway us. But I'm like you, Peter. I mean, I'd pull them over. I just want compliance. I don't want to issue them a ticket. But we've talked about it before. They can talk themselves into a ticket. And I think on our next video we're gonna kind of see something like that. But yeah, this was about a donut. It's a cliche about in the United States that all cops are fat and go to the donut store. That's where all this came from.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about you, Paul? You ever had any funny excuses for whether it's criminal matters or traffic matters?
Oh, it's just some things that come out of people's mouths.
Yeah.
But but I'm like you lot. If they pass the attitude test, they get treated a lot lenient.
And it's
More lenient.
easier.
The attitude test.
You didn't know about that, Mike?
Yeah, we call it POP, pissing off the police.
Yeah.
I pulled up this Sheila one day. I'm driving out there.
A Sheila means a girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's only young, and she's going past me like I'm standing still, and I'm doing 110. And so I was in an unmarked police car, so I've pulled the lights and sirens on, and she'd only been driving for about 18 months, 2 years. She was still on a P plates, which is a provisional license over here.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I just walked up to her, and I'd had enough of it, like this particular type of speeding. Like, it wasn't just 10 k's over the limit. She left me like I was standing still. So I pulled her up and I just said, you got your license? Started that ask you ended all that sort of stuff. And I said, what thinks that you have the skills to drive a car at that speed? And she goes, well, she just said sorry and everything else like that. And I said, listen, it's your lucky day. I'm on my way to a meeting. I haven't got time to give you a ticket. So I said, but what I'm going to do is I'll get your details. And when I go back to the office, I'll put you into the computer and you've got 6 months of probation. Otherwise, you'll get this ticket. Anyway, lo and behold, it wouldn't have been 3 weeks later. She's at a preen at Manildra, runs off the road. Pete goes and does the job. So, of course, the alert comes up on my system that she's got it. So I rang her up and I said, you didn't even last 2 weeks, darling. Here comes your ticket.
Right.
So she lost the license as a result because it was 8
provisional.
Yeah, provisional license, and she was doing well over 130 kilometres an hour, which is 75, 80 mile an hour.
Mike, do you have a point system in Texas on your license?
No. No. I mean, that's kind of a double-edged question, I guess, because I'm not. I'm not involved in that. Once I write the ticket, that goes on to the court, and they deal with that in the court. And whatever the judge hands down, I guess he could probably do some bastardized, system to try to get their attention. Maybe start low, and then it becomes like Paul was saying, if they're a repeat customer, then kind of elevate it up. But there's nothing that goes in. If I run somebody in my car on the run their license on the computer in my car, and it'll come back. It won't say, hey, they've got 3 points or six out of 8. I know there's some states that do that. Texas doesn't do that. But what we can see is when was their last ticket, or how many times have they come in contact with police officers in a certain window of time. And so we can use that to kind of guide us, if we wanted to, I guess, but it's like Paul said, he can, and we've discussed this on this channel before, Paul, that, I mean, if you're going to chew them out, you don't write them a ticket. If you're going to write them a ticket, then you don't chew them out, that type of thing. And I think that's just a police officer code, because it's not double jeopardy to do both. Or if you're going to call it, you said she was provisional. Normally here in the States, that if it's provisional, that's going to be a 16-year-old to 18-year-old, and they're going to be on their parents' insurance. So if you write them a ticket, then their parents' insurance goes up as well. So we if you're gonna do that, instead of writing a ticket, we would say, hey, call the parents and say, hey, I've got your daughter pulled over here. She's doing, like you said, 130 in a 70 or whatever the thing was. Can you talk to her? And they're, yeah, send her home. We're going to talk to her. And we try to let the parents handle it. But in 2 weeks, if the parents don't handle it, because, before we started taping this, Paul, you and I and Pete, where we were talking about how how the crazy people, have never been told no, and that's from their raising. So that, if parents get home like, don't do that again, and then she goes out there because there's no consequences to it, yeah, she's going to end up, that's how I see it.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So what we're going to look at next is so-called police arrogance. So we'll roll that tape and we'll give our thoughts on it.
Where's your license? State your name for me.
I can speak whatever I want, mate. Who are you? You're nobody, mate. You're nobody to me. You're just a guy with a badge, mate.
I'm observing you driving a motor vehicle. You're required to undergo a preliminary breath test. One long breath into the device till I say stop. Stop.
I'm not interested, mate.
Must be an expert if you've been pulled over that often. Because I observe you driving a motor vehicle, you're required to undergo a preliminary fluid test. Fancy word for drug test.
Anytime.
You done that before?
Anytime. I can do it anytime you want.
Speak English. Blue stick, grab it, lick those 2 squares for me 3 times. Thank you. The test takes 3 minutes.
I have very little objection to what this police officer's done. Two slight things. One about speaking English. I think that was maybe a little bit, out of order. But I think his physical distance between him and the bloke he was talking to was good. I think that he had a commanding presence, and then we no doubt we don't know what the experiences were between him and that was before. I don't think that he was being arrogant. I think he was being commanding. And perhaps he's one of these people that wasn't used to being told what to do by his parents. Who knows? But I don't have any real problems with the way that police officer conducted himself. What
about
do
you, Paul?
think?
I always approach things in a general conversation, and if they escalated it, then I escalated. Well, I didn't see what happened beforehand.
That's a good point.
And so we don't know if there was any escalation beforehand. But he still should have, well, a couple of those comments he shouldn't have made, as far as I'm concerned. Well, you must be used to getting arrested if you know this much about it. Well, that's just unnecessary, right? It's nothing to do with what's going on. He's there to do a roadside breath test and a drug test. You can be authoritative, but you can and commanding, but all you've done with that bloke is the next time he sees a police officer, he's just going to wire up straight away and cause dramas. So I always go the little one first, mate, how you going? You've been pulled over for RBT, okay, is that your vehicle? Yep, I need to do a breath test on you. And we have a very specific demand in New South Wales as to how to ask for that breath test, and you've got to quote that. Otherwise, it goes on. You're required to blow air into this approved measuring device, air from deep within your lungs into this, all that sort of shit that you had to go on with. The breath tests that they got now, that you don't need to blow into a tube, they just put it in front of you and you speak. So there's no consumables in it, and what happens is now every time you activate that little machine and it gives a result, you've got to have a corresponding, like if he's high range or mid range or even low range, you've got to have a corresponding charge number. Because what used to happen again, and it come down to the old attitude test, if they're over a little bit, He just said, park the car there, son, and come down and get the keys from me in the morning,
Yeah.
So
Can't do that no more.
yeah, you can't. No,
Nah.
you can't do that anymore.
Overnight, when that new machine came in, overnight, the arrest rate must have went through the roof.
Yeah,
Before, with the machine that we first had, there was nothing recorded.
yeah,
You could use your
Oh,
discretion
yeah.
more
Yeah.
freely. Now everything's recorded.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so
so the machine that y'all use on the highway for the what was it, portable breathalyzer
yeah,
test,
No,
PBT,
yeah.
is that what you call it? That logs that breath sample, and you have to have a corresponding case number to
yep,
go along with that, because if he blows over and it flags it and you didn't follow up on that as doing your police duties and
Yeah.
arrest that person, then you're going to be asked
Yeah.
why
yeah,
from your leadership. Okay, I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
yeah. But before
Yeah.
you just, it was a standalone machine. But even now, it's like, the coppers in America have got cameras, and it's very, very revealing how certain people behave when they have an interaction with police, and
Yeah.
99 times out of 100, the police act very appropriately. Actually, they've got a lot more patience than I would have.
Yeah, me too, buddy.
So with us, we've got cameras now, and thank God they didn't have them when I was going around.
I know what you mean.
But now what happens is, they've got a little computer chip in your firearm, right? And if you remove it from the holster, Bluetooth sends a message out to, if there's 10 coppers around, all their cameras will come on.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what they got here now. So
Oh, yeah.
if you're within the 30 or 40 meter radius of that person who removes his firearm, everyone's camera turns on automatically.
Wow.
And same with,
I've never even heard of that.
yeah,
I didn't know it either.
yeah. But so we had a anyway, I won't describe him too much, but we have our own firearm, a personal issue firearm, but we have to leave it at the police station when we're not on duty, right?
Yeah.
What happens in New South Wales is they've got this thing called user pays. So if there's a big, say, a sporting event at one of the ovals, and there might be a crowd of 100,000 people there, the organisers of that event have an agreement with police to hire police on their days off.
Yeah.
To actually,
we do that here. Yeah.
to actually patrol. So this bloke was he was going in and getting his firearm and wasn't returning it immediately when he finished. And now there's plenty of reasons for that. Like if you're out at, say, you're 50, 60 kilometres away from the event, and you don't live anywhere near there, to actually get your gun back into your police station, it might be a 100-kilometre round trip.
Yeah.
Right. But they should actually be made to store at the nearest police station, right? That's what should be happening, and I think that's coming in. But this bloke, he had a fallen out. He was a mad bloke. He was a copper, and he had a fallen out with his boyfriend, and he's gone around there and shot the new boyfriend and the old boyfriend, and cut their bodies up and threw them, and there was blood everywhere. And he used his police service revolver. Then he's tried to take it back about 3 days later and put it in the gun. So,
wow,
anyway, that didn't work. So that's what they've done with that chip. Now they can track where every firearm is.
Is that with a new? Because the New South Wales Police are getting, or in the process of getting, new pistols. Is that part of that?
Yeah,
yeah.
What are they going back to Glocks, or are they? Is that a different? Are they going to?
They're going to a 40 cal.
We had 40 calibers.
It
So the lot
must
was
be
40
30.
caliber.
It's,
I think it's a the new one's a 9
yeah,
millimeter.
9 mil.
Yeah.
It's a Smith and Wesson, I think.
Is it?
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
think, yeah, but it's a pistol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
semi-automatic pistol, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
See, we don't. We've discussed it on this channel, Paul. That it's ironic that you're police officers, you're sworn police officers, yet you have to lock your pistol up when you go home. Whereas I'm gonna speak for Texas. Most of the time, I'm speaking for Texas. But in Texas, you're bound by state law to respond, whether you're on duty or off duty. So they want you 90% of the time. They want you to be armed everywhere you go. Off duty, and now they don't want you to, strap it on to where everybody that's sitting in the restaurant around you knows that you got a pistol on. But they want you to have a concealed weapon because you have a duty to react.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What I guess y'all don't have to deal with the amount of weapons that we have to deal with in the States because you have strong gun laws. I get that, but a hammer can kill somebody too, and
And
so
knife.
can a knife and things like that. So my I guess it's disappointing for me because just talking to you two, you guys are normal guys, normal coppers, just like if I went down to the station today and we were all getting saddled up, ready to go out on patrol, you guys are the same kind of guys I would be talking to. So if they can trust you with a firearm for X amount of hours a day, but they can't trust you to go home with it and do the right thing.
Mate, we got trusted with a whole lot less. It used to aggravate me. I used to say quite often, they trust me with a gun, but they won't trust me with this or that. Yeah, it was just
yeah, it's crazy.
crazy,
It's crazy.
But I just, before we move off that subject and on to our last video, I'll just tell you, our viewers, a funny story about a night that I pulled over a car for a random breath test. And it was a bunch of young girls who were quite clearly going out for a night of partying, and the driver was the designated driver, so she was fine. She was blonde, okay? Nothing generally against blonde girls, but she was blonde. And like Paul said, you put the machine in front of her and you generally say count to 10. Now, they're all good-natured, lovely young girls, Put the machine in front of her and I just said, can you count to 10? She sat there completely silent. After a moment, I said, out loud. Oh. And then all her girlfriends were laughing and I said, and you've got her driving? Good luck.
You might want to give her some drinks and somebody else drive. Yeah.
So our last video to look at this morning is we'll roll it because it's about maybe what we would say to young people if they wanted to join the coppers. So we'll have a look at that and then come back to it.
Body this way, like that. Swing the other way, just like that. Oh, there you go. Yep, when the car comes by, then you just hit that button and then it tells us how fast they're going. So, okay, hit the button.
I would never discourage anybody from joining the police. We've all had our experiences between the three of us, but I would never discourage anyone from joining the police. I would give pretty strong advice about what to do when you got in there. And one of them would be don't stay in general duties too long because that's a machine that will just grind you down. But I think we need, there's a lot of talk about the younger generation being less and poor than our generation. Generally speaking, I push back against that. I don't necessarily agree with that because I've seen people, part of my career, I used to go down to the police academy assessing students in practical aspects of policing. I can tell everybody that's listening that I've saw young men down there who had the absolute essence of great police. It's one of the expressions within this country, Mike, about the Anzacs. I know you know a little bit about our Anzac history. And I would say that the person that I saw laying down there he had the Anzac about him and he was a young man. So I think we need to encourage young men and women to join the police, but with certain advice about what they do when they get in. What do you guys think?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I because I ended up as a commissioned officer, I like in New South Wales, there's about 800 commissioned officers out of 14, 15,000 police. So you're relatively senior. Yeah. And I had dealings with a lot of people that were commissioned officers that, quite frankly, should never have been in those positions. And it still goes on today. And my biggest problem is with young people that join straight out of school or straight out of university or college or whatever.
Yeah.
Is they can be easily caught up and ground out and their health damaged. My particular view is, if you want to join the police, you go and work in private enterprise for 3 to 4 years. Get yourself a trade. At least that way, if policing's not your thing, you've got a trade to actually fall back on, because it can be very debilitating if you end up with PTSD or high blood pressure, that type of stuff. It's life changing. So you need to be able to do something outside the coppers. And another good reason for that is I started as an apprentice mechanic, and when I was 18, and I had to work with in a workshop. There was about 60 or 70 people, and some of them were near retiring and all the way down. So there was a whole range, and you actually learnt to speak and communicate with people from not a position of power.
Yeah.
You had to show respect, and you had to treat people properly.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with a lot of kids coming into the coppers now is they only speak from a position of power, and they we've always been told your best tactical weapon is your mouth. And a lot of them just simply can't use it. So I think, yes, whilst I encourage young people to actually join the coppers, I think they need to have a lot broader experience at life before they walk into.
But part of the equation too, I think, before we go to Mike, is money. I think it's granted that you can never pay police enough to do what they do. That's just part of the job. That's why it's a sworn position. But policing, generally, for the amount of training you get, are fairly well paid.
Yep.
I had the benefit, and I'm not being glib in saying I had the benefit of bringing up 3 children, private school education, paying off a mortgage, and really, and there were times I didn't even have 5 cents to put in my pocket because I was a garbo. I was running behind a garbage truck immediately before the call. I knew what it was like to be poor, quite poor. So, and that made me more compassionate. So what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, well, you both make great points. With it, if y'all didn't have such thick accents, you could be Texans. I mean, just the way y'all, what y'all think. Yeah. So let me address what Paul was saying, and I'm going to piggyback on that. For me, Paul, I don't know if Peter had told you. So I'm a retired Marine. So I spent 21 years in the Marine Corps, in the military. Before I became a police officer, and I did police officer for 27 years after that. But I would tell people that I worked with in the police department that I'm not going to treat people the way I've seen them being treated by some of these police officers that don't have that background. They feel like they're acting like they have something to prove. And when they do that, then they kind of overstep, because they got this badge, they're demanding respect from the person that they're having contact with, yet they don't know how to reciprocate that and give the respect. Initially, start out with the respect of whoever you're dealing with. That's one thing. Uh, and I agree. There ought to be an age limit. Uh, Instead of 21 here in Texas, I think it should be 30. You guys go out, get some kind of other experience, whatever that is. Uh, and coming from me, another part of this, what would I advise young people that want to eventually become police officers, or at least attempt to become police officers? Because we know uh, you have to test out, and the tests aren't easy when you're tested on the law to even become licensed. At least it's not for us. Um, I would say keep your nose clean. Don't do the cannabis. Don't do all this craziness while you're in high school, thinking that, once you get out of high school, they're going to wipe that slate clean and they're going to welcome you into the police force. It may have been like that 50 years ago, but it's not like that now. There is background checks done that take 3 or 4 weeks, and they're so ingrained and so involved that if you have done something bad at 18 or 19 years old, that's going to disqualify you from the best, funnest career you could possibly have. So that would be my advice. Keep your nose clean. If that's what you want to be, a police officer, start mentally preparing yourself for that career. Be clean. That's my recommendation.
What I really loved about that video we just saw was about that policeman just being a great friend to a kid. I mean, that's a fantastic thing to do. In a
We
great
don't get to do that
environment.
very often, do we?
No, no. The only when I mentioned before about I used to be a gardener, I used to ride behind on a garbage truck, hanging onto the back of a garbage truck. It was a pretty rough job. Anyway, every one particular day where the town we were in, there was a little kid, and he used to come out every morning. He used to love to see the truck. And when I knew I was on my last week, pardon me, my last week of being on that truck, I invited that kid. So he'd come up here and step up here on the step.
Wow.
And so we went from there around the corner, and that would have been a real highlight for him to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember when I was at my one-man stations, get these. I remember some little kids came around. You had to report a dead cat. Or we saw a dead cat up there, and you take a real interest in it, and write things down, and I just love that. I just love that aspect the coppers have got.
Yeah, in our career as police officers, we've talked about it before. We didn't get the calls that, hey, this nice young boy wants you to come by and say hi. We always got the call of the dad, beating the snot out of mom. We never got to roll in with a smile on our face. We only dealt with dirtbags. That was our job. So if you had an opportunity to see a kid, you want him to grow up, the first, maybe it's the first contact he's had with a police officer. Stop, give him a sticker. I used to have little badge stickers, and I'd give them a badge, and they'd have that thing all upside down. They just loved it. That was their first again, that was their first contact with a police officer, and he's my friend. That's who I go to if I need something. So I think that's what we got. But as police officers, we dealt with the dregs. I didn't get a call saying, hey, come out here to this party, and so we can all gather around and give everybody a group hug. It was always, John's beating the snot out of Mary,
Yeah. We used to go over in one part of Dubbo, and you get out of the car and they just straight up into you, abusing the shit out of you. You're picking on us, you're doing that. I said to him, I had this spiel. I said, at any one given time in Dubbo, there might be less than 6 police working for a population of 40,000. Tell me how we get time to come around and pick on you, dickhead.
Yeah. Hey, we're not doing anything. You want to run over to this neighborhood and see if we can't
If you
piss
don't
off
want us here,
somebody?
I said, if you don't want us here, don't call us. Okay.
Right. That's right.
Well, I think that might be a good note to wrap it up on. So thank you very much for
Okay.
sharing your thoughts and your experiences, because they're absolutely gold. Right. So thanks for doing that. And to our viewers, if you have any questions, comments, put them down and we'll get to them. There's one that I got last week, but I promise you we'll get to it. It was about our views on outlaw motorcycle gangs between United States and Australia. We might bring that up next week. Okay, so if you have any videos you want us to look at, one of our viewers suggested, I think, most of these ones we just looked at today. So do that, and we'll see you all again next week. Hooroo.
So it's like,
Yeah.
Hey, nice meeting you, Paul.